Hi, my name is Gabriel Zamora, and I'm a youth pastor at Takeover Student Ministries in New York. I want to talk to you today about discipleship, and discipleship specifically being a relationship that you and I initiate. The corporate model, or what we've kind of been accustomed to, is sometimes we got to track down the person who we want to mentor us, or who we want to be a quote-unquote spiritual father. But I want to tell you this, that's not the way of the kingdom, and I don't believe that's the way you and I are going to reach young people. Because you see in 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah chases down Elisha. He walks past Elisha, who's plowing, and he identifies him, comes back and puts his cloak over him. So Elijah initiated the relationship with Elisha. In Micah chapter 4, it says this, that the hearts of the fathers will turn towards the sons, and then the sons to the fathers. So it's the father figure initiating the relationship or the reconciliation there. You see that Jesus goes and identifies the disciples and asks them to come and follow him, not the disciples coming to ask Jesus to follow him. You see in Acts chapter 16 that Paul identifies Timothy as someone who wants to take on his ministry travels with him. It's Paul initiating the relationship with Timothy, not Timothy having to run down the man or woman of God, but Paul initiating the relationship with Timothy. You see in Acts 2:42 that they gave themselves to fellowship and the apostles' teaching. And so in discipleship, you always see these two things working. Content goes hand in hand with community, or content goes hand in hand with life-on-life relationships. Discipleship is this, you and I identifying who God has placed in front of us, who he wants us to walk with and do life with. Discipleship is not a class. God grows each individual differently, and he always has. He grows Abraham in a land that he does not know. He grows Moses in a palace. He grows David on the backside of a mountain. And then he grows Jesus as a carpenter's son, and Paul under the greatest theological minds of his time. And so for you and I, for our students, for our young people, he's not going to grow any one of them the same way either. He may have grown me in the hood, you in the suburbs, me in a broken home, you in a good home, or vice versa. He doesn't grow any one of us the same. And so discipleship cannot just be a class. It has to be life-on-life relationships. When I first got to my church, I asked my pastor this question. I said, a year from now, if I have done a good job, tell me what it is that I've done. Now, of all the things he could have told me, this is what he said. He said, it really bothers me that on Sunday morning, the students sit all the way in the back on the right-hand side. They seem disengaged with the Sunday experience, and that really bothers me. That's one thing that I'd like to see change. I said, okay. Now, first, because I'm under authority, I said, no problem. So I began to initiate relationships with these students sitting in the back right-hand corner of the Sunday experience every Sunday morning. Started doing life with them, started going to their basketball games, having them over to my house, having them hang out with my wife and I, us cooking a meal for them, just doing life with them however we could. What came about of those relationships is one Sunday morning, I sent them a text before Sunday services start, and I said, hey, would you like to come and sit in the front with me on the right-hand side? They say, yo, PG, serious, do we got to go up there? No, man, you don't have to do anything. I'm just inviting you to come sit with me. What happened is they all ended up moving towards the front and sitting up there. What has come about me initiating relationships with them has, some of them students are responsible for bringing in more students than we've ever had. Some of them now are men of God, two of which have went on to Bible college and are pursuing a place in ministry. And because I initiated those relationships, I initiated with them before they could with me. Because discipleship is this. It's you and I being in relationship, doing life with others, and from that place being a life-giving source for someone to come and draw from, teaching them what we know in a way that's organic, in a way that's life on life. I grew up in the hood. My father's in prison for 25 years. My mom struggled with a drug addiction, crack cocaine, and crystal meth. They sold drugs in and out of my house. I was in homeless shelters, the projects, but a local church initiated a relationship with me. They began to reach out to me. And more specifically, my youth pastor or youth leader began to reach out to me and bring me in this relationship. Now, they invited me and had me go through a new believers course, But the new believers course was not my discipleship process or journey. It was in doing life with my youth leaders that I began to engage and be a part of a life-giving discipleship relationship. Because you and I, our greatest impact happens up close. That's why it's so powerful, the D kit that UYWI has produced, because it's not just great content, high theological truths brought down into the heart language, as D.A. Horton would like to say, but it is great teaching, but then given to the youth leader to facilitate the conversation, because that's where discipleship is going to take place. It's in life-on-life relationships. It has to move past curriculum and into life-on-life relationships. Now, I'm not against curriculum. Myself, my wife, and I have written a 6-week new believer course that all our students and all our new believers go through. But we know that that is only a means to an end, and the end being getting them into relationships with other youth leaders in a small group and being able to do life. So I'm not against curriculum. We need to use curriculum, but what God will bless as a supplement, He'll curse as a replacement. Let me explain. Discipleship courses and discipleship classes are supplemental to life-on-life relationships. If I were to give you a supplement, it would do great for you in addition to a great diet. Now, if you just ate supplements and didn't have a great diet, you would shrivel up and be weak. And so that's what we've done, and our church is suffering from a lack of discipleship because we have tried to replace life-on-life relationships the way the Bible does discipleship with a class. And that's never going to work. It's never going to be as fruitful as you and I need to be. So pray and identify who is it that God's brought in your life that you can begin to start pouring into, doing life with, and let it be natural. We don't have to do anything outside of who we already are. If you love to work on cars, bring a young man or a young woman to work on cars with you. If you love sports, take them to go play ball with you. Go play ball with them. Go to the neighborhood, pick up a basketball, put on some sneakers, and play with them. I bring in students in my sermon prep. This is the passage we're working from. Let me show you how to exegete this passage, and it always opens up into conversations that we can go deeper into the text that I would not be able to say in a 35-minute sermon or talk. But in that moment, they're learning how to exegete passages. They're learning theology. They're learning how to extract from the Bible, and their questions are being answered at a heart level in a smaller context. Get them involved in your event planning. If you're going to the grocery store, youth leader, young woman, there's young ladies who don't know how to cook, they don't know how to take care of a home, and not to be stereotypical, but can we just take them to the grocery store? Let's teach them how to cook a meal. Maybe they didn't have their mother, or they've had to grow up too fast, and some of these developmental stages got overlooked or bypassed. We can be that person, and it's just being naturally where we are, doing life with people. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 10 says this, I'm sending you Paul talking of Timothy, because he knows my manner of life. He knows the way I've prayed, the way I live, what I've done. Timothy knew Paul in a very intimate way, relationally. And that's why he became such a great disciple. Do our disciples know us in an appropriate, vulnerable level? Being vulnerable with them appropriately, you don't share with them everything. You should have others that you do that with, but share with them a lot. They should know you well. They should know you bleed. They should know that you're human. They should know that you go through struggles too. I love you all very much. Let's take up the banner of discipleship and get messy and get into the context of people's lives. It's beyond a class. It's doing life with people. I love you all very much.